Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Overview and Scrutiny for the 22nd of April. First of all, do we have any apologies for absence? Sorry, Councillor Ellis.
Yes, a recent apology due to illness, Councillor Roxanne Ellis.
And I believe we also have other apologies.
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies for absence from Councillors Martin Smith and Sam Smith.
Okay, thank you. Next, to approve the minutes of the meeting that was held on the 11th of March. Are there any matters of accuracy on those? Okay, so assume happy to approve. Hopefully everybody also got the email with the answers to the questions that were submitted after the portfolio from Linda Pearson last time. So if there's any further questions arising from that, then go back to Emma and she can pass them on. Thank you. Oh, do I? Okay, can I have someone to propose the minutes then? Thank you, Councillor Pope, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Brock. And a vote. And a vote, please. Does anyone think I hadn't done this before? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Right. So any declarations of interest? And just to remind you that if there are, then to bring them up in the normal way. Thank you. So first item today is our regular scrutiny of portfolio holders, and we have Councillor Wheeler today, who's just told me he's got 43 slides. So if you start yawning, I'll tell him to stop. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting tonight. I'm going to go through, obviously, a slideshow, but stop me at any point along the way if you need to. And also feel free to ask me any questions as I'm going along. Okay, so I'm going to start. So obviously my name's Councillor Henry Wheeler, and I've got responsibility for lifestyles, health and wellbeing. And within that, we've got the leisure centres, sports development and physical activity, arts, culture and monitoring theatre, cinema, health promotion and development, social prescribing partnerships, loneliness and isolation, mental health, including dementia support. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take you through the leisure centre bit, and then I'll go through the other bits as the slides progress. Thank you. Okay, so within the leisure centres we've got Arnold, Redhill, Carlton Forum and Richard Herod and Calverton. It's worth noting that Redhill is a joint use site, Carlton Forum is a joint use site, and as is Calverton. But what I mean by joint use sites is they're used, you know, there's an agreement with the Academy and Nottinghamshire County Council on those sites. And obviously with Arnold, we've also got quite close liaison with the county around the library as well, because that's adjoining that building. And Arnold also has the theatre in it with the cinema in Bonington. Okay. So, I'll just talk a little bit about leisure performance. So, attendance across the 5 leisure centres has grown steadily over the last few years. Target for 23-24 was quite impressive, actually. We surpassed by 93,000. Annual attendances are now higher than the pre-COVID levels by 21,200, which is very good news. And obviously, I've got the attendances here, so you can see through there. I've obviously put the COVID years in there as well, so and post-COVID, and where we are now today. Okay. Within there, we also have what you call DNA membership. We started with 470 DNA members in April 23, finished the year on 4389, so a net gain of 390 members. DNA memberships now surpassed the pre-COVID levels by over 200 people, which is an increase of 5%, which is another good news story. A little graph there just showing the different quarters over the years, so going back to 2019 through the COVID years through to 2024, up to date now, so quarter 4. Sorry.
Just clarifying, DNA in this,
it's just a name for the leisure college.
Right, okay. Yeah. So it's not renewing your membership?
It's basically DNA is a card that allows you, it provides, you know, sort of access to lots of different health promotion schemes and things like that. So, you know, you can get discounts and things like that. But it's basically a card, the membership of it's growing. It's like a promotional tool that we use as well. I don't think Lance wants to say anything on that.
Yeah, so you basically can access the health and fitness gym suite, swimming and fitness classes with the cost of your monthly membership. So the brand is DNA, basically. So it's a leisure centre membership, in effect.
It's all right, it's just DNA has a different connotation in my world. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, yeah. So obviously the membership's grown over the last 12 months, and so that's basically illustrates the quality of the service delivery choice available to customers across the leisure centres. Through the year, the leisure department has implemented more customer functionality such as online joining, reminders for class bookings and the ability to go onto a waiting list for classes also. There's virtual classes which are available in the pool at Arnold, dry side activities at Redhill. Carlton Forum have given increased flexibility for customers to use the facilities when instructors aren't scheduled to deliver sessions, and also there's also a focus on happiness chemicals created through exercise, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, which our leisure team are cascading through to customers at every opportunity. Is actually, I'll come to this later, we've actually just opened something with that in there called Dose, which relates to a new gym we've got at Carlton Forum. Okay, so there's your membership, and as you can see the target there. So we're over target by 72k. Got the different leisure centres there with the different annual targets, actual income, and then the differences between them. So we've got swim school as well. We went from 3,825 members in April 23 and finished the year on 4,070, which is a net gain of 245 members. And swim school membership it's now surpassed the pre-COVID levels, over 1,271 people, which is an increase roughly of 45%. Again, you can see here the graph, and you can clearly see on there, obviously the COVID year marked out, where it plateaued down at the 500 mark. Quarter two, I think it was around about quarter one, quarter two, 2020-21. So growth in swimming lessons, membership. So we've got the Learn to Swim scheme is growing by 245 members over the last year, which means more children from the borough will be safer in and around water. In 2022-23, 475 children achieved their 25-metre swim badge, and in 2023-24 this number had grown to 602. There were successful campaigns around drowning prevention, so we've done big campaigns around that over the last 12 months, as well as the celebration of swimming at the annual Christmas Swim Gala held at Arnold and Carlton Forum Leisure Centres. Okay, so swimming lesson income. Swimming lesson income includes both group lessons and private lessons, so 2 kids per session. And you see swimming lesson income on here. So currently we're 66k over target. You can see the different leisure centres on there as well in terms of their annual target and actual income and the difference. Okay, we've also got Armed Forces Leisure Card. That was established in 2021, and Armed Forces membership has now reached 477. And you can see the steady climb from when we first launched it to the current quarter 4 now. Which basically gives ex-service personnel access to our gyms at our leisure centres. So I'll just go through a few achievements, leisure achievements here. So we've introduced the Net Promoter Score. It's an ongoing survey of all leisure centre customers, which is an indicator of loyalty, as well as a tool of getting positive and negative feedback, allowing the sites to focus efforts in areas that matter most to customers. Upgraded the Royal Life Saving Society compliance across the sites, which allows Gedling to continue to run RLSS courses, providing the opportunity for individuals to gain a qualification which enables them to operate as lifeguards at swimming pools. We've increased the functionality of the Gedling Leisure app, which can now be used for referring new members and accessing discounts, as well as setting up reminders for bookings made at the sites. Completed Swim England pool schematics training, which provides insights into maximising pool walk space, increasing teaching points and more efficiency when planning the pool layout. And following funding application from the leisure team, the council successfully received 147,525 from Sport England Swimming Pool Fund to support rising energy costs, installing new pool cover and shower flow restrictor at Carlton Forum Leisure Centre. So it's a very successful bid that our leisure team put together. Calverton, new equipment at Calverton. So we've got new treadmills. Calverton Leisure Centre, 3 new high-tech pulse treadmills installed in the fitness suite to replace the old ones, which were breaking down quite frequently. And this has been met with quite a lot of enthusiasm from customers who are getting full use of the new equipment. We've received a lot of positive comments from customers, and this new equipment can be cited as a contribution factor to Calverton Leisure Centre hitting an all-time high in terms of DNA membership at that site. Poolside audio upgrade as well at Calverton. So we've had new surround sound audio equipment been installed on the poolside, works alongside the mood lighting to create a sensory sort of experience, which can be utilised across a range of different sessions. It's attractive particularly for disability sessions, and also makes a local industry leader in terms of provision of sensory pool space for disability groups to hire for use. This has been a major contributor factor in establishing a partnership with the autism group Spectrum, who now regularly hire the pool. So a very inclusive development there. Okay, so some more leisure achievements here. We had the AMP event on the 27th of January. Gedling Leisure's Health Hub team, including representatives from leisure centres and the body tracks. The ABL engaged with members of the community to help promote a healthy and active lifestyle. Members of the public took advantage of the body tracks body composition machine. Hundreds of free passes to Gedling Leisure Centres engaged in conversation with trained health professionals. The body tracks is actually brilliant. It's brilliant. I've been on it a couple of times. It shows you, gives you a readout of your heart rate and everything. And it also gives you advice on how you can improve your health and well-being. Health membership, in conjunction with Active Knots. So we've got the Active for Life 3-month fitness membership, originally funded by Active Partners Trust and given to identified members of the community. Started quarter 2, 2023-24. But now all candidates have completed the 3-month scheme. It's a fantastic legacy with 24% of people on this pathway now taking out their fitness membership and are regular customers at Gedling Leisure Centres. Okay, and obviously I mentioned the Dose Fitness Studio earlier. So Dose stands for those different things I was talking about earlier. Okay, so we were pleased to announce the opening of a newly refurbished fitness studio at Carlton Forum a couple of weeks ago, and it was opened by 3-time Olympian Andy Turner. It was pictured on the picture at the beginning. The new studio was formerly a squash court, so it was a squash court, but it had been used as an extra gym space for customers since 2020 due to the popularity of this. Additionally, we decided to refurbish it and make it a purpose-built fitness studio. It's very, very popular. The new fitness studio is located next to the remaining squash court and has been named the Dose Studio to represent, as I was saying earlier, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin and endorphins, which are all feel-good chemicals released in the brain, etc. when exercising. These positive chemicals can help to reduce feelings of anxiety, improve mood, boost the body's immune system. One of the most significant additions that we've done as well recently in the studios at Carlton Forum is we've introduced a MyZone. MyZone is it's a wearable fitness technology device that you can wear, and you can link in and actually link in with other people that might have a MyZone and find out how, you have a bit of competition there between the staff as well, actually, because they've got these new watches that they use, and customers can actually create like groups and things on there. It's very, very popular. Participate. You can challenge. It was basically challenges that you can participate and see the real-time fitness as a result. Okay, on the TV screen in the studios at the MyZone app. So there's a TV screen. I think you can just make it out there. It shows you how well you're doing in terms of your heart rate and etc. when you've got the the device on. Do you want to say anything about that? About the new my zone out.
No, I think Councillor Reid has explained it perfectly, really. It's an opportunity to use a bit of technology and monitor your kind of body metrics and compare with others, really. And as I say, there's interactive technology on screens now at the new suite where, you know, whilst you're exercising, you can kind of see your metrics on the big screen as well. So it's an exciting development for us.
Okay, so I'm going to go on to sport and physical activity. Sorry, yeah.
Just before we move on from sort of membership and how much our gyms are being used, do we keep data on how often a member will come to the gym on average? Because I know we keep data on the number of members, obviously, but as the members grow, is the number of visits per member increasing, decreasing? Because, you know, because health and well-being is very important to our council. Do we keep data on that at all?
I think we do have some, I'm not sure what the data, but we do have forms of data where we can see or see new members coming in, members dropping out, etc., etc. Have you got any information on that?
Yeah, so we do have a range of data, so we can look at that. I think one of the other key elements, and Councillor Reid has just referred to it, is around retention rates. So although we see an increase in membership, you have people leave as well. So a key part of the service is trying to try and increase the retention rate to keep existing members. So, which is quite key really in terms of, I suppose, a well-being measure, but also it helps us in terms of the business side of things as well, obviously. So I think that's kind of the key indicator for us. But we can drill down in terms of where people are coming from. So we can look at people's addresses. We can also look at areas of the borough where we don't have members and try and do sort of our marketing targeted to increase growth in those parts of the borough as well. But yeah, so to answer your question, we can look at kind of numbers of attendances of individuals to support them.
Councillor Pope.
Thank you. Just following on from Councillor Allen's question, with the folk who don't renew, do we do any follow-up with them as to why they haven't renewed? Are they doing something different or?
Yeah, we do. We look. We often chase up to find out why, because we do surveys, basic customer surveys to find out, and the customer surveys help in terms of looking at how we can improve that service. Because it may be that somebody's left because of a change in the way. There might be a change in the pricing or something like that. It's difficult sometimes to ascertain why people leave, because people leave for different reasons. But we do have that data. We can look at that data, and we can we do try and chase up wherever we can to find out reasons why people might have left. Because sometimes people leave, but then they come back quite quickly, depending on the offer that's available. Because often we have various offers throughout the year, particularly after Christmas. After the Christmas period, we had quite a big dive on DNA membership. We look at promoting it because obviously for the new year, a lot of people like looking at New Year, health, fitness, etc. After the excesses of Christmas, for example. So, do you want to say anything else, Lance?
I think one of the things that Councillor Reid mentioned in his slides was something called Net Promoter Score. So this is about ongoing engagement with customers. So it's trying to identify what those issues are before they leave as well. So we've introduced, we try and be proactive. Obviously, there are exit kind of surveys, if you like, when a member does leave. I think it's trying to understand where we are in terms of the market, really. So in terms of health and fitness and budget gyms, people often leave because of price of membership, but then obviously we have a wider offer, don't we, around swimming and other such services as well. So that's why I think, as Councillor Reid has referred to, we often find a cycle of people returning. And again, a key thing, as I said, is how do we try and stick to that or increase those retention rates, really, to avoid that turnover, because that will kind of take us to the next stage, really, in terms of our performance.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson-Payne.
Thank you. I think some of my question was answered, but just to comment, really, that I see the figures at the start of your presentation, Councillor Wheeler, in regards to growth in many areas of people accessing leisure, and I think that's really good news, and hopefully that means that residents in Gedling are feeling healthier and happier. But just in terms of, obviously not just for those people that are leaving, but it'd be good to know that how we actually get feedback from service users who are, you know, regularly renew or with us all the time. I noticed in your presentation that there was a bit about the Gedling Leisure app, and I was just wondering if, I mean, I haven't checked on there whether there's an opportunity for people to actually give feedback on there, not just when they leave, but at any time, really.
We provide opportunities throughout the year for people to make comments. I mean, by and large, I mean, we get a lot of positive comments, a lot of positive feedback. I think you're absolutely right. The app would be a good way of people being able to provide that feedback. I'm not sure how that quite works at the moment on the app in terms of the comments that customers can leave on there. I'm not sure whether you know any more about that, because I've been on the app and I've not been able to find a specific where you can leave a comment, but I know we do surveys through all the different bits of communication we do put out, and it's useful sometimes looking at that information we get back from customers. By and large, most of the feedback we do get is very positive, but it would be an addition, I think, to you know, it would be very good to have that on the app as well. People being able to leave comments on the app would be a good addition to that app and make it more inclusive, if you like, I think. So I think it would be a good thing to do. Whether we do that or not, I'm not sure. I've not seen it yet. So.
Yeah, so I think that's something for us to look at. So one of the things around use of apps and the digital access really to the service, so that's something we've developed over the last 2 years or so. So we've had to introduce, well, we have procured a new leisure management system, which effectively is a back office IT system for leisure. So in terms of the implementation of that, we've been gradually developing services such as the apps with the provider. So that work's ongoing at the moment, I suppose. So although we've made some progress, there's probably some more work to do to make that interface better for the customer. So I think part of this conversation is how we engage with the customer to ensure we can do that right. But also I suppose it's that kind of medium-term plan to make sure that those apps and those sort of digital interactions can improve over time, really. So I think we're at a certain stage of development, but it's not finished yet, I suppose, is the best answer for that. So I think, yeah, certainly using the app to feedback comments would be very helpful for the customers. So we can take that away, can't we?
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go on to sport and physical activity. I'm going to look at community falls prevention. So we've got a falls prevention programme delivered by a qualified instructor across the community venues in Gedling. It was shortlisted in the prevention strategy of the Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Integrated Care System Health and Care Awards 2023. The programme has now been running for over 12 months, with participants noticing improvements in their strength, balance and social confidence. So it helps with self-esteem and so forth. Walking, the Get Going in Gedling Ramblers Wellbeing Walks are delivered weekly at Gedling Country Park and Mapley Top. The weekly walks led by volunteer walk leaders have been delivered on a weekly basis for over 10 years. The Age UK-led walk and talk sessions has been running once a week for 12 months at Arnadale Park. The walks are designed for residents with limited mobility, so use walking aids once a month. The walk is followed by a social session in the Civic Centre, where the walkers and walk leaders are joined by guest speakers who provide advice on a range of topics such as scams, fire safety, and in-house and safety in the house, should I say. So they're very, very useful as well in terms of helping people become more aware of the more the scams that are ongoing and some of the issues around safeguarding as well, particularly in the home. Thank you. Improver runners. We've got the Gedling Borough Council. I've supported the Gedling running community for over 6 years, supporting them to access the running track at Cartley Willows Academy during the summer months. Individuals have used the sessions to not only improve on their running techniques, but have also reported a significant increase in their mental well-being. They've enjoyed the social interaction that sessions bring. We've got the playing pitch outdoor sports strategy was adopted by Cabinet in November 2023. The strategic document will be used to support the development of the local football facility plan and will also be used to provide strategic evidence needed to support external funding applications to enhance sports facilities across the borough. And then we've got the UK SPF Facilities Fund for Lamley Lane. As part of the UK SPF, the following allocation has been made to improving sports facilities across the borough. So 100,000 has been allocated to the Lamley Lane Changing Room project, which will see the installation of new changing facilities on Lamley Lane in 2024, spring 2024, so about now. A further 300,000 has been allocated to improving wider facilities, including Burton Road Pavilion, and development of squash courts, additional fitness studio space, Carlton Forum, which I was talking about earlier at the Leisure Centre, and the remaining budget will be spent on projects within this 2024-25 financial year. Okay, so health promotion and development. We've got... Go on, Ty.
Squash courts have come up a few times in your report. I admit it, I've played squash in the borough for 45 years. And when I started, I think there were about 20 courts. And now I think we're down to 1. Is that right? Carlton Forum, is that the only court that's available?
I think we've got one at Calverton as well. I'm sure we've still got one at Calverton.
Still one at Calverton.
Yeah.
I just wondered, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy really that squash activity will fall if we haven't got the courts available. And I noticed that the court was changed into a gym and fitness studio. And there is another court still available at Carlton Forum. Is the other court likely to get refurbished at Carlton Forum?
It's a difficult question, because the reason squash courts have slowly dwindled over the years is because people aren't using them. That's the issue. People are not using. And in terms of actual income, we're not making income from them. So we've had to look at other ways of utilising that space, which people are actually using and using on a very, very regular basis, and using more and more regularly. I did actually have a meeting with somebody from the UK squash clubs about this, and I did speak to them because we're not the only authority that's seen a reduction in squash facilities. That's been happening across the board, across Nottinghamshire and across all the districts as well. And the reason being is squash is not as popular as it used to be. People are no longer playing squash. It tends to be quite a niche market now. And that's not being horrible, that's the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground is squash, in terms of its usage, has dwindled over the years, and there's less and less people using those courts, and we need to be able to use that space more efficiently to raise income and use it in a way that people are going to, people will utilise it and use it, which is why we did the change at Carlton Forum, because it was successful and people wanted it changing into something more permanent.
I'm just worried that it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you go from 20 courts to 2, then of course you can't play as often because there isn't the opportunity.
We can look at squash, we can look at it, we can look at how we can promote that, but we've tried that already. We've tried promoting squash, we've tried everything we can around getting those squash courts used, but the reality on the ground is it's not happening. It is a very niche market. It's a difficult one to balance, unfortunately. And it's not just Gedling, it's across the board. You can go to any district where there's issues. I mean, some of it's around demographics as well. You have a particular demographic that might play squash, but depending on the demographics of the area that your leisure centre is, or the area that your population are, I know it's an issue across the whole county with squash clubs. There's an issue with squash space because people aren't using them anymore, unfortunately. Sorry. Okay, so food clubs. So food clubs and pantries have been set up across the borough to improve residents' access to affordable, nutritious food. Whilst reducing food waste, individuals and families can become a member of their local food club for as little as £1 a year. They can then purchase a bag of food on a weekly basis from £3.50. There are currently over 300 members across the food clubs and pantries in Gedling. Food clubs and pantries are currently operating from the following sites. So we've got one at Calverton Core Centre, Carlton Community Hub, Newstead Village, Netherfield Food Club, and Arnold Methodist Church.
Can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
So does the council subsidise those? Because I know that Food Share, the charity that provides the food, have had to put their prices up because they're struggling to get volunteers, and obviously their costs are also going up with the inflation like everyone else is around food.
I'm not aware of us subsidising the food clubs. I do know that obviously we have community grants where we provide funds to various projects. So I think some of the food hubs and food clubs would have had or could access community grants from council, from the councillors. And I know that Arnold Methodist Church has done that in the past. I don't know if you've got anything you'd like to say on that, Lance.
Yeah, I think when there was a programme originally established where county council funding was available for food clubs, which came to an end. What we tried to do in Gedling was a more sustainable sort of community-based approach where the clubs sort of developed without the need for that additional funding. So obviously, what's on the slide now is are clubs that hopefully are more self-sustainable in their nature. So as we know, any community initiatives that are able to identify additional funding is very helpful, isn't it? And as Councillor Wheeler says, support from local elected members and other pots and other community grants are helpful for that. But certainly our approach in terms of the Gedling Borough Council offers a support to kind of connect and encourage that sustainability around the offer.
Yeah, it's just my experience is that they run out of food, so that's the problem.
Okay, so we've got social eating reconnecting through the food fund. So in 2022, Gedling Borough Council was successfully awarded £25,000 from Nottinghamshire County Council Community Fund. Reconnecting through food, designed to use food as a mechanism. I'm losing my voice, sorry. Right, so reconnecting through food was designed to using food as a mechanism to reduce loneliness and social isolation. To date, over 36 grants have been awarded to local community social eating initiatives. We've got Sustainable Food Network. In order to support food clubs, food banks and the wider food agenda across the Borough and Gedling Borough Council have regular representation at the Notts County Council Coordinated Sustainable Food Network and are a member of the Sustainable Food Network Strategy Group. We also have a regular health and wellbeing e-newsletter which goes out monthly to approximately 6,800 subscribers and covers public health campaigns, information, local support groups, services, and got some examples around the winter vaccination, Not Alone, Stop Smoking Services, Illicit Community Living Room, Age UK, Connect Service and Gedling Leisure Opportunities. Promotion Commission Services. So along with the newsletter, commissioned health and wellbeing services such as ABL, Your Health Notts, Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Talking Therapies are promoted through the health development offices. Communication networks including Health and Wellbeing Co-Production Partnerships, Gedling Health and Wellbeing Co-Production Partnership. So we've got the Gedling Partnership, which brings together partners from healthcare, social care, youth service, the community sector to discuss a variety of themes in relation to residents' health and wellbeing. The partnership offers opportunities for partners to network across organisations, share good practice and provides opportunities for collaboration. We've got breastfeeding friendly. Gedling was actually one of the first councils in Nottinghamshire to declare itself a breastfeeding friendly authority. So we're working with Nottinghamshire County Council and Nottinghamshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. The breastfeeding friendly accreditation ensures that spaces provide a welcoming environment for parents, that staff are positive, that are positive and supported enough and accepted standard of cleanliness and facilities. All accredited places display a window sticker on the front of their premises to inform customers. There's over 30 venues currently signed up to the breastfeeding friendly scheme in Gedling. Tobacco control. In order to support the tobacco and smoking reduction agenda across the borough, Gedling Borough Council have regularly have regular representation at Nottingham City and Notts County. Council coordinate tobacco control alliance meetings and task and finish groups. I was one of the first councillors to actually, on the Wealth and Wellbeing Board, to raise concerns and call for tough action and regulations to prevent the sale of disposable vapes to protect children and young people, because I've seen a massive explosion in the amount of children and young people vaping, to the point where they don't even know they're vaping a lot of the time. They just pick it up, they don't even know they're doing it.
That's okay. Can I first apologise for being late for the start of your presentation, Henry? There's a crash on Westdale Lane, which is creating chaos. Just on the vapes, our local town centre in Netherfield has got a lot of vape shops, and there's one just opened, which is basically a sweet shop. And when you go in the sweet shop, it's actually a vape shop. So the front is all sweets, and then once you're in, you're on vapes. Is there anything the council can do from within our powers about licensing, or I don't know whether it's within our remit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's a difficult one, because obviously law and legislation's only just been passed at the parliamentary level. I should hope as time moves on that obviously as an authority that deals with licensing, we might be able to do something about that in terms of, you know, how those shop fronts display the information and crack down on that. But at the moment, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult call because, as I say, the legislation is in its early stages. And it might be something that we look at regulated similarly along the lines of alcohol, if you like. But as I say, that's something that we may have to look at in the future as and when that regulation comes out. Thank you. So we have family hubs. Family hubs are currently being developed by Nottinghamshire County Council. They were actually called Sure Start Centres at one point, some years ago, to offer support from pregnancy through the child's early years, later childhood and into young adult up to the age of 19 or up to 25 for young people with special educational needs and disabilities. Families are currently being explored in Netherfield and the Killiswick areas, which are areas with very high social deprivation, high need, really, particularly around family, children and young people's health needs. As I say, it's not a new invention, it's something that used to be known as Sure Start some years ago. Social prescribing partnerships. So we've got green social prescribing. So in order to support the green social prescribing agenda across the borough, Gedling Borough Council have regular representation at the South Notts Green Social Prescribing Network. Green social prescribing opportunities are embedded into the community team. Wider work programme, including place-based working initiatives and the events programme. Pop-up green social prescribing activities have been trialled in the Colton and Killiswick areas, which include an intergenerational workshop to make flat pack bird boxes. A big green book with green social prescribing activities across the borough is also currently being explored with health partners. We have social prescribing link workers, so the communities team and health promotion development office ensure that social prescribing link workers are connected into the relevant place-based work programmes and that they receive the regular updated version of the Gedling Community Group's database to support the referrals into the community. We have community connectors, an engagement network. A new network has been created to bring together community connector engagement roles across Gedling. This group is facilitated by the Health Development Officer and brings together roles such as social prescribing link workers, local area coordinators, community development workers working within the Gedling area. Okay, so I have a question from Councillor Payne. So in what specific ways is Gedling Borough Council currently engaged in social prescribing initiatives, and what non-clinical services does the council provide or support that are accessible through these schemes? So the answer to this is quite a long answer, sorry. This is largely through the work of communities and leisure service area. There are a range of physical activity options both within the leisure centres and within the community that offer non-clinical support for people with health conditions and patients. Leisure centres work with a range of health professionals to raise awareness of activities which patients can be signposted to. These have included our specialist cardiac rehabilitation programme, Heartbeats, DNA Health, and now Active for Life, 3 memberships funded by Active Knots. The community team facilitates and support activities from falls prevention classes, green social prescribing, which I touched on earlier, to walking groups across the borough, to which vulnerable people access and are signposted to. Key to this work is the support offered to local community-run hubs, ensuring the services they offer are sustainable and that residents and partners are aware of their offer. The Gedling Guide is a tool that supports this, and through the current Strengthening Communities programme funded by UK through the Sheer Prosperity Fund, the development of self-serve digital platforms for the voluntary sector of the borough will further enhance this. The further question, sorry.
Can you update me on the Heartbeat scheme? Because I heard about 6 months ago it wasn't being delivered because there wasn't anybody available to deliver it. Is it actually being delivered now?
Yeah, so we have got a vacancy now. So what's required is we need a qualified instructor to deliver that programme. So we're looking at proposals to recruit to that post so we can commence that programme again. But in doing so, we're also looking at how we can support sort of wider physical activity programmes as well, which are tailored for health conditions. So we have had a gap in that service. And one of the challenges is the availability in the market of qualified instructors. Particularly those that are self-employed, because obviously it is a cost to getting qualified, quite a high-level qualification dealing with people with specific health conditions. And actually running those sessions yourself, paying for community venues, is actually quite an expense. So it's almost not a full-time job in itself. So that's something we're currently engaging with health partners on, because there's almost a workforce development issue there. Which we don't just see as our kind of issue, as a leisure centre issue. So it's how we work with NHS partners is there any funding we can free up to think about how do we almost grow the workforce out there so we can run these programmes? Because, as you said, there's been a bit of a gap there and challenge to fill that.
Okay. Just following on from that, Lance, what is the qualification that's required for that? Do you know off the top of your head?
No, you're testing me now, aren't you? So,
well, the reason I ask is whether you'd had any thought to linking with local universities that provide, pre-registration health courses and maybe looking at using students and/or their expertise.
no, yeah, that's a great idea actually. So it's something that we can pick up and have a look at. I think that's helpful. I think when it comes to workforce issues, I think the links with the universities are a good opportunity, because it's about looking at different ways of trying to fill that gap. So that's one thing we'll pick up and have a look at. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got further questions from Councillor Robertson-Payne. So how does Gedling Borough Council collaborate with the NHS and the voluntary sector to ensure joint ownership and involvement in social prescribing programmes? And could Councillor Wheeler elaborate on the strategies Gedling Borough Council employs to ensure that the voluntary sector is adequately prepared to handle the anticipated increase in referrals resulting from social prescribing initiatives? So NHS Social Prescribing is commissioned by the local primary care networks who form part of the Integrated Care System, or ICS. Strategic oversight of this activity in areas undertaken by the South Nottinghamshire Place-Based Partnership, or PBBP. Council has played a key strategic role within the PBP over the last 4 years regarding the development of the voluntary sector support and in particular community development and support for social prescribing. The head of communities Lance, and leisure sits on the PPB board and was appointed by the board as executive leader for community development in 2020. Community development being one for the 4 strategic priorities of the partnership. The head of communities leisure has worked alongside the chief executive of Rushcliffe CVS, who is the PBB's board's appointed implementation lead for community development to develop engagement support and capacity building initiatives for the voluntary sector in its engagement with commissioned health services. As part of this approach, the Council has pioneered the community development programme supporting the NHS social prescribing across the South Notts. In 2019, GBC was funded to offer community development to local NHS social prescribers, and it was recognised there was a need for additional capacity to support the voluntary sector, given the growth in referrals to the sector from the new social prescribing service. GBC appointed and hosted community development worker that supported the grassroots sector across South Notts to receive referrals from social prescribing link workers and established a grant fund for groups to access small amounts of cash as part of their development. A considerable database of voluntary sector groups was developed and activity and engagement monitored by the worker. As part of the Council's ongoing evaluation and assessment scheme, further funds were secured that enabled a second community development worker to be recruited, but to be hosted by Rushcliffe CVS by 2024. The sustainability of the scheme was proven to be a great success, championed by the ICS, ICS. Additional funding has been allocated by both the ICS through its Health Inequalities and Innovation Fund and by Public Health for its place-based partnerships fund to support the community development programme. In addition, the Public Health Commissioned Health and Wellbeing Service, Health Notts, has committed funding to support wider community development work in our local area. GBC has led the way working alongside health partners in neighbouring districts and voluntary sector to develop what is now an enhanced programme. The additional funding secured has seen the programme grow from 1 community development worker hosted by GBC in 2020 to 5 community development workers in 2024, working across the South Notts locality, all now hosted by our voluntary sector partners, Rushcliffe CVS, Newark and Sherwood CVS and Ashford Voluntary Action. I'm going to move on swiftly to NHS Public Health place-based initiatives.
Can I just check, did that answer your questions?
Yeah, just a brief comment. It did answer many of the questions. Thank you. It's very thorough, Councillor Wheeler. I recently met with the Arrow PCN social prescribers who are based at Daybrook Medical Centre, and they are doing some really, really good work. And they were telling me about, there's potential for the future for more people to be working in social prescribing. And, I just picked up on a few things that sometimes it can be just simple things like meeting space or rooms being available for them to be able to do what they want to do, to be able to meet with clients, meet with people that need to access the service. So it's great to see all the good things that are going on, but sometimes going back to the basics and looking at the simple things like meeting space is so important. Look, the team in our area now are sorted, which is good, and that's been through joint working through myself, Councillor Sandra Barnes, and through Gedling Borough Council. But I think just keep an eye on it really, because it's obviously growing and it's been taken a lot more seriously by health services across the country.
Thank you.
Can I just ask something? So I just wondered if you collect data on how many people who come through the social prescribing route, for example, with the 3-month subscription, how many of them carry on afterwards, and whether they have a different need than that which is generally offered. So without wishing to sort of, I suppose, characterise people, I think some of the things you were explaining that would appeal to your very keen athletes and gym goers might be really off-putting to people who have just gone in as a first step to try and get more healthy.
Lance.
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the Active for Life 3-month. Yeah. So I think just a bit of clarity around that. So that it's basically it's a 3-month free membership that's offered, and that's funded by Active Knots, who are the active partnership for the area, for the Nottinghamshire area. So that's an agreement they've got to, or have done to do that. And basically what we offer is they are sort of vulnerable people who wouldn't normally access leisure centres. So in doing that 3-month period, we offer additional support, one-to-one coaching with those individuals. So our fitness promotion officer who works in the leisure centres will meet with them before they access the leisure centres, start to build confidence before they actually go into the centres, and then they'll be given dedicated fitness advisors to work with them during that 3-month period. So the aim of that process is to get them to be a regular gym user. So I think Councillor Wheeler mentioned that I think our success rate has been about 24% in terms of them signing up for a regular gym membership. So it's that kind of induction, specialised induction process, but we do recognise, and what we've learned from it is actually those individuals need specialist one-to-one support, because they're not just going to go into a gym space which is a certain kind of environment really. So it's about building confidence. So although that environment can only change so much, it's around how that individual is able to adapt to it. So that's what the programme has been. So we've had a degree of success with that. Obviously, that's not for everyone in the long term. So it's been very much a pilot piece of work that we're hoping we can continue. And it does kind of help us identify the type, again, we talk about workforce issues. There's a kind of number of sets of skills that people need, maybe even to work in our leisure centres, is how you offer that kind of coaching support as well, and understands people's particular needs and confidence building and all those kind of issues really. So, yeah, so that's what the scheme's about.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to NHS public health place-based working initiatives. So we've got quite a comprehensive scheme. I'm losing my voice again. It's all right, it's fine. In 2022, Killistic was selected as one of 4 areas across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire to deliver an NHS England pilot project to promote health in happy communities in the more deprived areas of the ICS footprint by identifying purposeful, sustained approaches to tackle health inequalities through co-production with these communities. Community engagement was carried out using a collaborative approach between partners with an interest in the Killistic area. This engagement led to co-produced interventions based on what the community had asked for. These included a breakfast club during the school holidays, which has been very successful, a friendship group to reduce loneliness and social isolation, and an after-school club, all of which are now sustained by the local community. The engagement was supported by several community events that were organised by local partners and well received by the local community of Killistic. So there were various events. We had a Christmas event, we had a Killistic Fun Day type event, we've had a health fair, all sorts of different things that happened in the local community. And as we said, those projects are not just in Killistic, they are across the county as well. They've been run in other areas. Arnold is one of 4 neighbourhoods across South Nottinghamshire identified for target working through the NHS Health Inequalities Fund. A launch event with partners in Arnold took place in December that considered local health inequalities, data, community assets and the opportunities to link strategic agendas of health and wellbeing, regeneration and planning. Over 30 partners attended from various organisations, including health, local authorities and charities. The event was designed to invite partners to be part of a new way of working to deliver better health and wellbeing outcomes for the local Arnold community. Carlton One Step at a Time. Carlton was selected as a location based on the public health insight project in 2019. Carlton had high levels of physical inactivity and was significantly higher in the over 65 age group. Engagement started with local stakeholders, and after the COVID restrictions eased, engagement began with residents too. There was a desire for residents to reconnect in the community after the pandemic, but didn't know where or how to access information. The need was identified to bring in some extra capacity to help connect the communities together. Carlton Community Connector is a 2-year role, 1 day a week, working with partners and residents in the Carlton areas to help connect more residents into the local community. Since December 2022, the Community Connector has supported the launch of the Age-Friendly Carlton campaign, supported the Friends of King George V Park and the Friends of Valley Road, set up a new beginners running group, created the Getting Out and About and Carlton Bench, mapping in Carlton bench. It's a mapping exercise. It shows you where all the different benches are across the Carlton area. Supported the launch of the Carlton Community Hub, supported the creation of the Carlton Voices film, and delivered weekly chair-based exercises and classes. There is actually a very interesting film which has been created, which we could send that out, couldn't we, actually, if people wanted to see that. Okay, loneliness and isolation. So we've got the Gedling Guide. It's an updated version of the Gedling Guide, contains useful information for residents to get local support on topics such as mental health, finance, as well as social activities. It is now in a year-round format to help people at any time of the year, not just during the winter months. Guides have been distributed at Christmas at community events, as well as being circulated for the local community hubs and partners. Warm and welcome spaces. We've got the warm spaces initiatives now been reviewed and has been extended to become welcome and warm spaces. This promotes the idea that the spaces are not just for keeping warm, but offer somewhere for people to go and socialise with others all year round. There are currently around 30 venues listed on the welcome and warm spaces list, which can be found on the Gedling Borough Council website. And they're also listed within the Gedling Guide. Okay. Mental health, including dementia. So we have, in order to support the mental health agenda across the borough, Gedling Borough Council have a regular representation on the Nottingham North and East Mental Health Network. This network provides opportunities to make links between commission services and community-based support to support mental health locality. Dementia Action and Nottinghamshire Communities team represent Gedling Borough Council at Dementia Action Nottingham and Nottinghamshire meetings. These provide opportunities to network support services providers, along with information on raising awareness of dementia locality. We've also done Dementia Friends training since April 2023, 2 separate, 1 virtual, 1 face-to-face. Dementia Friends training sessions have taken place with Gedling Borough councillors as well. So 1 or 2 people did come here for the training, which was delivered in the council chamber. Dementia Friends training has also been delivered to Gedling Borough councillors. All training has been delivered by the Alzheimer's Society. Not Suicide Prevention Network. So to support the mental health agenda across the borough, Gedling Borough Council have some regular representation at the Suicide Prevention Network. More specifically, the districts PBP and PH, Suicide Prevention and Mental Health meetings, real-time surveillance is shared through this network if and when there are any suspected local suicide clusters. We've also done mental health awareness training for the housing needs staff. That's been implemented recently, which sort of fits in with the wider safeguarding agenda that they will be familiar with and dealing with on a regular and daily basis, with some very complicated housing needs casework. Arts Culture, including Bonington Theatre and Cinema. So we've got Bonington Theatre and Cinema here. Attendances at Bonington have well exceeded the target set for 2023-24, 47,500 attendances compared to 40,200 in 2022-23. So we continue to see attendances rise post-COVID, which has been a particularly challenging period for the arts, culture and cinema industry, generally speaking. So there's the attendance figures from 2019 to the present day, and as you can see on there, obviously we've got the COVID years in there as well, where we did have some attendances, but obviously they were very limited due to the space that we had to use at that time, because it was obviously we had a lot of social distancing and things like that at that point. So we have 47,456 at the moment. UKSPF Events, Culture and Heritage project aims to reinvigorate the Council's programme of heritage work, which was paused due to the pandemic. One of the strands of this work is the creation of the Gedling Heritage Way, which aims to connect the borough's physical and intangible heritage and encourage opportunities to walk, cycle around the borough. The programme of events and cultural activities that the Council are able to deliver directly as a result of this funding, and those at the community are able to provide through the availability of additional funding and resources, enable connection, cohesion and enhance community health and well-being. Some interesting walks in that, actually, some interesting walks where you can sort of link in with the country park, the Dumbles, the Hobbocks, and quite a few other areas down in the Collick Valley area as well. The Council's events programme provides opportunities for local people to improve their physical and mental health by promoting in-house leisure provision, and by engaging local health partners to promote their services. Events are programmed around the borough to enable as many people to attend as possible, and they provide a chance post-pandemic for community connection, contributing to a reduction in social isolation. The events program aims to engage as many residents as possible, but due to capacity, where the council are unable to deliver events in parish areas or around smaller community hubs, advice, guidance and resources are provided to support the local events organisers. Council provides support to a variety of cultural organisations to provide creative projects across a number of arts forms that support the health and well-being of local residents. These have included City Arts, who do quite a lot actually with our young people locally, long-standing delivery of Express Yourself health and well-being sessions for young people aged 13 plus, reminiscence and theatre workshops with handmade theatre for isolated older people in the borough, drama and film workshops from Flying High at the Bonnet Theatre, which also provide opportunities for social heating. Public art in council parks, a commission of public art in the council's parks and open spaces announces the wider local area allows for the celebration of the history and heritage of the borough. Public art projects promote greater connection with our green spaces and expand the ways that residents can engage with the natural environment. Okay, so you'll be pleased to know that is the end of my presentation, and thank you for listening. Thank you very much. If there's anything else you want me to come back on, please just ask that question. I'm happy to come back.
Well, thank you. That was very comprehensive. So I don't know if there's any other questions from anyone else. If not, I've got questions. Yeah. Councillor Brockbrick.
It is a quick one. And I'm asking you to go back to it's a question really about social prescribing and about the use of the leisure centres. I've not played pickleball, but I know it's one of the biggest growing sports sort of in the country. And I know other areas that it's being used like social prescribing because it's basically a low impact version of tennis, basically. And it's just, is it something that we've looked at being able to support in our leisure centres or linking in with? I know there's a local Nottinghamshire organiser. Is it something we've looked at linking in with yet? Are there any plans? Does anyone know how to play it? I'm willing to give it a go.
I think we need to have a conversation because I don't think we've got any plans at the moment unless the team are secretly, amongst their various plans they have, looking to do some. But I'm happy to, any ideas you've got about that, to particularly if you're playing yourself and tips, because it's, I think, as Councillor Wheeler says, with the leisure centres at the moment, it's about how we can best utilise the space, isn't it? Because what we have at the moment, we've got I think that some of the presentation highlights, we've got a balance around the challenges of subsidy and how we make use of the space to increase income, whilst also delivering those social value projects around, whether it's social prescribing type programmes, etc. really. So, and again, some of our space can have its limitations because obviously we've got quite old buildings at the moment and that configuration, isn't it? But certainly, if you want to send me an email, have a conversation, then we can have a look at that really and see what our options are for now or into the future maybe. So.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Councillor Whiting.
On Councillor Brocklebank's theme of low impact sports or low intensity sports, darts is a sport that is very good for bringing people together, and there was a fantastic piece recently about a darts club in Beeston that brings together local veterans, and they're able to kind of talk about mental health issues and so on. Do we have any darts boards, spaces within our leisure centres, or rather, and if we don't, would we be open to creating some?
I think there's potential to work with partners around looking at that, even if it's not the leisure centres, there's potential partners out there that might be able to do that. So some of the partners that use some of the community centres, or even actually some of the local pubs possibly. We could look at that. And again, in terms of coming back to the question from Councillor Roy around squash, I'm not averse to looking at squash and looking at how we may be able to promote that and make it more of an offer locally. But as I say, it comes back to the assets we've got, how we manage that, and the reality on the ground at the moment, unfortunately, is that we've tried to market squash, but people aren't using it, and it's really difficult. But I'm happy to look at that and look at how we might be able to to come to some kind of, I don't know. It's a difficult call, that one. But we can look at it. I don't know if you want to say
No,
something on that.
just on the darts, I think I mentioned, we have got dart balls at Richard Herod Centre, which are available for public use. The thing of darts, and it's kind of, I suppose, accreditation as a sport, is a view about whether it is or not. So, but it's a kind of real opportunity, isn't it? Because we know even in the last few months, it's suddenly the profile of darts has raised because of different young people being involved and what have you. So I think, so where even at Richard Herod, there is an opportunity for us to think about how we market that opportunity for people to come on site, because actually, in effect, that's a free activity, isn't it? Because people can come into the bar area and utilise that. And again, how do we use that to balance around maybe some income for us as well in different ways? Yeah.
I like your description of it as low impact, as long as you're on the right end of the dart,
That's
I think.
right, yeah. But I wasn't aware that there's a board at Richard Herod, but I understand, is that where the armed forces breakfasts happen as well? Is that at Richard Herod? So maybe there might be a tie-in there that could happen. I mean, sometimes it's just about signposting people, isn't it, to where these things are. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to ask you a question. So at this committee, it regularly comes up about the lack of access to dentists in the borough, and we are hoping to try and get somebody from the ICS to come and talk to us about that. But I wondered if there was any way you could influence that, or if you had any information.
Yeah. I mean, certainly in terms of the Health and Wellbeing Board, there is a priority around oral health. So, for example, there's a programme around brushing teeth, which is being implemented in a lot of schools, a lot of education around that. But also, I don't know whether people know that the water is also, they're looking at fluoridation of water as well. Obviously, that's not an answer to the issue around accessing a dentist, but I think the only way you're going to get that answer is if you actually get the Integrated Care Board here to the Scrutiny Committee and ask them and put them on the spot about how they're looking at dentistry more widely. But yeah, I mean, I can certainly talk to them about it and ask questions, but whether they're going to give me the right answer is another matter.
Okay,
thank you.
I think Emma's sending the request to them, so thank you. Okay, so and that took longer than perhaps we thought it would, but thank you very much for a very comprehensive presentation, and you are free to stay or leave. Okay.
Thank you.
So next item on our agenda is a progress report on the carbon management strategy. I'm personally very pleased this is here because I undertook the carbon training, and as my pledge, I said that in my role as Chair of Scrutiny, I would make sure that you answered to us, so I can give myself a big tick now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Melvin Cryer, the Head of Environment, and in charge of carbon management and also the Be Friendly policy and the Quiet Fireworks policy, so I'll be delivering the 3 reports. This particular report, the Carbon Management 1, is an update to the Committee on the progress of the Carbon Management Strategy and Action Plan. In March 2022, Cabinet approved a Carbon Management Strategy and Action Plan, which details a programme of works to ensure the Council and community achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2030. There are many actions set out in the Action Plan, in Appendix 2 on page 43 of your packs, that we are currently delivering to, and we're making good progress in many. Some of the actions delivered are shown, illustrated by photographs in Appendix 3 on page 71 in your packs. As part of our bid to address our carbon emissions, the Council commissioned APSI, the Association of Public Service Excellence, to refresh and calculate our carbon footprint as they did in 2019-20. Using data from July 22 to July 23, this data is provided in Appendix 1 on page 25 of your packs. The table on page 18 of the report, in essence, summarises this and shows the comparison of emissions between 1920 and 22-23. As can be seen, it shows overall our carbon emissions have reduced by 22%, which indicates a significant move in the right direction, with more to come. The main driver for this has been the change in fleet fuel use in April 23 onwards, from hydrocarbon diesel to hydrogenated vegetable oil, HVO fuel. This has seen a 90% reduction per vehicle in our CO2 emissions across our fleet. This advanced renewable fuel works in the diesel engines without need for further capital expenditure or changes to our fleet infrastructure. And though slightly more expensive at 17p a litre more, it produces an effective solution on our journey towards decarbonisation for the next generation. During the past year, our climate change officer has also worked with local schools in collaboration with the neighbourhood wardens to promote the car idling campaign to encourage vehicle users when dropping off their children at school to switch off their engines whilst waiting outside the gates. This initiative received good national and local media attention and has served to drive down unnecessary vehicle emissions in such areas. The Green Rewards scheme, launched at the end of October 21, has been extended for a further year. Green Rewards is an online platform designed to incentivise and encourage residents to undertake positive environmental behaviour change, a shared partnership project between the Nottinghamshire boroughs and districts and Nottingham City Council. To date, 613 Gedling Borough residents have registered as members, and this number is growing. During 2023, Gedling Borough Council were announced as national winners at the APSI Annual Service Awards, and in September, we won in the best category working initiative. The entry for this group included some metropolitan and city councils, so a significant win, which once again shows Gedling Borough Council and its partner authorities leading the way. Additionally, in 2023, Nottinghamshire County Council received 5.5 million for local electric vehicle infrastructure, termed Levi, across the whole of the Nottinghamshire area. And Gedling have been partnering and consulting on this by putting forward suggestions where these charging points can be installed locally. This collaborative work is currently still ongoing. Equally, a collaborative bid led by Nottingham City Council has successfully secured 287,000 of government funding from the Net Zero Living through the Fast Followers competition. This bid was submitted in partnership with Gedling Borough Council, Nottinghamshire County Council, Derbyshire City Council and Derbyshire County Council, and Broxtowe and Rushcliffe Borough Councils. Funded by the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero and Innovate UK, it aims to accelerate progress towards local climate goals. Achieving net zero in the region requires partners to work together, and the Fast Followers funding will build on the positive collaborations between Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire moving forwards. It commenced in July 23 and the project runs until autumn 25. During the year, our Climate Officer successfully submitted a bid and received funding from Cycling UK for the Big Bike Workplace Revival, and as a result, 3 events were organised and delivered by them in spring 23. This allows staff to access servicing for their bikes and associated repairs, which were undertaken free of charge. The Climate Change Officer delivered the first Climate Change Assembly to over 315 children and all staff at Arnold Hillview Primary School to celebrate Earth Day in spring 2023, and they also attended a Youth Council meeting in autumn 23 to discuss how the Youth Council can get more involved. The meeting generated various actions that the Council agreed to follow up on. Gedling Borough Council has also introduced an innovative recycling scheme which has been available at the Arnold, Calverton and Carlton Forum Leisure Centre. The Leisure Loop recycling scheme. It makes it easier for swimmers to recycle many common items at their local centres, such as goggles, swim caps and floats. And by January 24, we'd recycled over 350 kilograms of swimming pool waste. This received good media coverage, including an appearance on BBC East Midlands Today when the scheme was first launched. The Climate Change Officer made a compelling presentation on Gedling's journey to net zero to the parish councils at the Parish Council Conference in November 23, and we also presented what support could be offered to residents on the impacts of flooding caused by climate change. And to celebrate and promote National Recycling Week in October, the Climate Change Officer organised and delivered workshops. This included an interactive presentation on the importance of recycling paper and saving trees, and how this directly links to climate change, with a project to make new paper from the school's waste paper to illustrate this. Gedling Borough Council has also been recognised for its actions to tackle the climate emergency. All councils across the country were graded on the delivery of their climate actions in October 23 by the organisation Climate Emergency UK, who assessed all councils across 7 different sections. Councils were then given a percentage on how well they were delivering on their climate actions to achieve net zero, and Gedling was graded the highest of the 7 boroughs and districts in Nottinghamshire at 31%. Our Climate Change Officer has been regularly communicating throughout the year with various groups, in particular supporting and providing updates for 2 of our local climate groups, Gedling Climate Group and Burton Joyce Climate Action Group. As part of this partnership support approach, Burton Joyce Climate Group held a Warm Homes talk for residents in October 23. Additionally, the first Nature and Climate Convention took place in November 23, the first in the Borough and Nottinghamshire, with over 90 people attending. The progress made to date in this report covers many of the recommendations mentioned in the Climate and Nature Convention report that is Appendix 43 on page 47 in your packs. The Climate Change Officer will continue to support Gedling Climate Change Group to deliver further on these action areas where practical and possible. This is as well as working collaboratively at events such as Arnott Hill Park in June and Gedling Country Park in August, where they promoted the Green Rewards scheme and engaged on sustainability and climate change messages with our residents. In November, the first climate change debate took place in the council chamber with 60 children taking part. It was chaired by the Mayor of Gedling and Climate Change Officer, taking on board a question and answer session. The Climate Change Officer has delivered 2 carbon literacy training sessions, as was already mentioned, to the senior leadership team, heads of service and elected members. They've also put together a dedicated section on climate change on the Gedling Borough Council website so that local residents can be informed and educated about the impact of their footprint on the borough, especially the need to reduce carbon emissions, as well as providing information for staff on sustainability and climate change on the internal intranet. In terms of planning and new house developments, the developer Keepmoat is delivering on the first development of new homes in the borough that will produce up to 80% less carbon emissions than standard homes. The homes at Gedling Green, a development comprising of 33 new homes at the site of the former colliery, will see properties that feature air source heat pumps, solar panels, increased levels of insulation and EV charging points to achieve and deliver to new future homes regulations. And in terms of decarbonisation of our property portfolio, an independent technical advisor has been appointed to assist on the submission of the public sector decarbonisation scheme, Phase B, which is the Salix application. The council awaits a response, but it is understood that the anticipated council contribution would be in excess of 900,000 for a 2.1 million civic centre project. So not an easy resolve. Arnott Hill House and Burton Road projects have been deferred and will be delivered at a later date. The Council's Home Upgrade Grant, Phase 1, and the Local Authority Delivery Grant, Phase 3 schemes both concluded in 2023. As a result of both schemes, a total of 69 energy efficiency measures were installed in 68 low-energy performance homes for the residents likely to be in fuel poverty at those properties. The schemes funded by government grants were delivered in partnership with Eon Energy and Nottingham Energy Partnership, and a total spend of 775,000 was utilised to install the energy efficiency measures in the eligible homes. Over the course of the 2 schemes, the project completed installations of external wall insulations at 25 properties, solar panels at 35 properties, loft insulation at 3 properties, and smarter heating controls in 6 others. And currently we have the Hug 2 and devolution retrofit schemes running as successor schemes focusing on this same fuel poverty area. The year has also seen the installation of a new fitness studio with state-of-the-art accessible equipment at Carlton Forum Leisure Centre. All the new equipment not only meets the need of disabled and other users, but also is self-charging and doesn't require plugging into the power supply as well, with LED lighting being installed in the exercise studio. Redhill Leisure Centre have also installed 6 secure cycle lockers to encourage sustainable travel to and from the leisure centre. And in 23-24, over 3,000 trees were planted throughout the borough as the council continues to move to mitigate against the effects of climate change. These were funded by the Urban Tree Challenge Fund and Trees for Climate grant funding. The financial, legal, equalities and carbon reduction and environmental sustainability implications are all noted in the report. So in summing up, committee members are asked to note the summary of actions and activities already undertaken by the council to date in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on that report? I've got Councillor Pope and then Councillor Robinson-Payne.
Thank you very much for that report, really informative. Can I just start by commending the council on the move to using HVO fuels and driving down our carbon emissions, despite calls from other parties to move back to diesel at the agenda setting council. But the question I have is really related to taxes and whether there's more that we can be doing as a council to reduce carbon levels from taxi use. I note in the report it's an ongoing piece of work, but I wonder if you could talk a bit more about what you're actually doing and if we could be doing more.
I think at the moment we aren't doing anything in that area, but we could certainly do so. Bearing in mind that obviously running a taxi is a person's livelihood, and then there are the requirements to increase the cost of fuel, etc., that we'd be asking of them. But certainly we can make recommendations along those lines. And again, in terms of electrification, I think that's a move to come, but we need to see more electric charging infrastructure within the borough than we have currently to enable the taxis to keep their vehicles topped up all the time as they're going about and delivering their customers to wherever they need dropping off. But yes, certainly I'll bring that up with Kevin Neal on our taxi licensing office and we can discuss that.
Councillor Robinson-Payne.
Thank you. The report was brilliant. The council's doing such amazing job on this front, I think, when you compare to others. And actually, to hear that we're actually achieving awards that perhaps city councils or metropolitan borough councils, as you said in your report, that we are achieving those awards, that is great news and good to hear. Just a question really on the car idling campaign. I know that you said in your report that we've been working with teams of staff going out there and sort of promoting that campaign and trying to get parents and guardians and whoever are dropping children off to change their habits. Has that been successful? Has it stuck with people, or do we need to be constantly reminding people about idling? Because I know it's been brought up with me in the past, actually quite recently, by residents that people don't sometimes turn off a car. So it's just about sort of, are we continually reminding people? Are we keeping up with that campaign?
The initiative was launched with success, but you're quite right to say over a period of time that then declines again because people get into old habits. So yeah, there is certainly a need to work with comms and get that message out there on a periodic basis to refresh it, and I'll make sure that we're looking to doing that in the future.
Councillor Whiting.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the report, Mel. And can we put on record our thanks to the Climate Change Officer, Sim, as well, because I think she does fantastic work. Just picking up on what Councillor Robinson-Payne was just saying about car idling, we've got hotspots in Colic, and I'm sure we all have in our wards where it's not just outside schools. So I'm thinking of roads where kids would be playing at a park and, you know, parents sit there, and in summer they don't want to turn the car off because the air conditioning goes off, and then in the winter it's the heating. So I completely understand the need to kind of continually get these messages out, but could we expand it beyond just at schools? The best thing that we've done in Colic about this is actually got the kids involved, and then the kids tell the parents, and I'm sure those of us who are parents or know children know that if your kids tell you something, you're much more likely to take it on board than if you see it on a council social media. But could I just ask a question also about tree planting? The tree planting figures are really good. and that's great. How are we getting on with identifying larger areas of land, perhaps, that we might be able to plant more significant numbers of trees on for the future?
So we're appointing an ecology officer shortly. Their job will be to go across the borough and identify those areas where we can improve the biodiversity. Now, some will be council-owned, but some will be privately owned as well. So they'll be working with private landowners in partnership to also make recommendations to them about how they might be able to increase the biodiversity of the areas that they own. Certainly set aside land areas to the end of farmers' fields, where you've got your headlands and things like that. So yeah, that work will be taking place, and that's part of the planning department who will be running with that.
I'm just going to ask a question first, if that's all right. So I know at the moment it's challenging, isn't it, in terms of the short-term cost of some of these initiatives against the longer-term goal of reaching net zero. And I just wondered, is that the biggest challenge that we face in getting to our target, or are there other challenges that...
The two challenges I think we face at this moment in time are, one, decarbonising our property portfolio. We've got a lot of old buildings, and we will have to look at our assets moving into the future as to what we want to do with them. This building, for instance, isn't the most energy efficient council chamber, as you can imagine, with a lofty roof like this. The Civic Centre is a big sprawling building, 6 boilers at the moment, energy efficient as much as they can be, gas boilers. It would take over 20 heat source pumps, and the cost for installing those heat source pumps currently is, as I indicated, quite high. These are some of the realities we've got to wrestle with moving into the future. And then the other big area that we've got to work in is with Scope 3, which are those organisations immediately outside that we deal with. So those organisations within the borough, but also those companies we deal with outside the borough, to make sure that their carbon credentials are all there and transparent for all to see, rather than, you know, they're sourcing timber from unsustainable sources and things like that. That's another area where we struggle staffing-wise, resilience-wise, with to deliver to. But it is something we'll be looking to improve upon as we move forward.
Councillor Pope?
Just following on from the idling, and I agree with Councillor Whiting, it's not just schools that idling of engines is an issue. But does the council work with school PTAs and other groups associated with schools to raise awareness of idling?
I think we can. To be fair, it's the county council that run the education department, and then you've got the academies, which are separate now and are hived off from the county council even. So we can certainly influence and partner work with them, and through our climate change officer, we have got that access into schools, because they love coming in, delivering carbon agendas in the lessons and things like that. So I think that's the toe holding that we've got, that we can work towards delivering to that agenda moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. And just as an example of heat pumps, I believe NUH, Nottingham University Hospitals, is currently trying to transition, and they're having to dig 60 to 70 boreholes to provide enough heat transference. And if you're looking for green spaces to plant trees, can I put a bid in for Plainsway? Huge green area right in the middle of the borough. And now we don't seem to be likely to have a road built down it. It would make an ideal green lung for the borough.
Thank you. I don't think there's any more questions, but I think the committee would appreciate if you'd perhaps come annually to update us on progress. Yeah. Lots of nods. Okay, so bees next.
Of the application of the Council's bee-friendly pollinator policy seen in Appendix 1 on page 99 of your packs. It summarises the actions being taken to stop the decline of bee and pollinating insect populations by the creation of biodiverse pollination habitats and the banning of the use of harmful herbicides and pesticides on council-owned land. The report follows a council motion on the 27th of January 21 regarding the adverse effects of the use of herbicides and pesticides on land in the UK that is impacting on bee and other pollinating species, leading to their decline. In summer 21, Gedling Borough Council Parks and Street Care Service started to introduce changes to its parks and green spaces maintenance regime. It carried out an audit of its open spaces and identified unused areas within its parks and green spaces that could be set aside as open grassland wildflower habitats and areas for tree planting to provide much needed habitat for pollinators. These include Gedling Country Park, Arnott Hill Park, Burton Road Jubilee Park, Digby Park, the Hobbocks, Breck Hill Park, Lamley Lane, Willow Park and Arnott Vale Park. This has continued since such that the total area now set aside for wildlife meadows is 5.5 acres and is growing each year. The full list of sites can be seen in Appendix 2 on page 96 of your packs. Each year running April to May and September to October, other areas also remain free of cutting to allow pollinators to forage during optimum flowering and feeding periods. Over time, this approach is creating an extensive network of habitat mosaics, which are managed to optimise the range of habitats provided for pollinators across our open space network. Further planting of both trees and wildflower meadow habitat has been undertaken at our country parks, green flag parks and recreation grounds. And species-rich grassland and trees for the benefit of pollinators have also been included in landscaping schemes at the country park, Digby Park, Arnott Vale and Thackeray's recreation grounds. Tree planting, which includes sheltering and overwintering habitat and increasing the number of flowering pollen-rich species, including blossom-producing spring flowering trees such as apple, cherry, hawthorn, blackthorn and sallow, have all been planted. Over the last 5 years, we've planted over 9,499 native tree species. Our council's country parks are managed for the benefit of biodiversity, and pollinators are an integral part of this activity, with open grassland areas managed to maintain flowering plants and grasses. The aim being to create greater diversity and optimum soil conditions. At Gedling Country Park, the habitat is specifically managed for the benefit of red-listed species, the dingy skipper butterflies, providing foraging and nesting opportunities for them. In January 21, the Council stopped the use of neonicotinoids and glyphosates across all public access land that it manages in a proactive effort to reverse the destruction of the bees and pollinators' habitats and protect human health. The Arising Action Plan enshrined this resolve and confirmed no use of the damaging neonicotinoids or glyphosate weed killers. At the time, members wrote to the Environment Secretary and Gedling Borough's local members of Parliament condemning the UK's government recent authorisation in England of the use of a pesticide containing the neonicotinoid thiaminoxam. In England, despite the EU-wide ban on its outdoor use and explicit government pledge to keep the restrictions, they called on the UK government to fund proper research into the hazards of glyphosate on human and nature's health. Unfortunately, the government have still continued to allow that pesticide to be used. The Council's past service department has also been trialling alternatives to herbicide use. However, no viable, effective, affordable and environmentally friendly alternatives have yet been found, but work continues in this area. Working with local schools and community groups, bee-friendly opportunities have been developed, focusing on the range of actions that could be taken at the local level by such groups. And signage, such as that shown in Appendix 3, page 98 in the pack, show how we promote information used to support the initiative, to help raise awareness and mobilise local community groups, through whose help we've planted 4,000 plus trees since 2021, including community orchards in our country parks and school grounds. Our Partner Highways Authority has also introduced a no-mow-may approach in 2023 and delays its end-of-season cuts to maintain flowering plants and grasses for as long as practically reasonable on our verges. Many of Gedling Borough's richest wildflower grasslands have been identified as sites of local importance for nature and biodiversity. These sites are protected through the policies in the Council's Local Development Plan. The Local Development Plan also contains policies to protect areas rich in biodiversity within the wider countryside from inappropriate development and identifies green networks within major settlements. Continued biodiverse habitat surveying, which I've alluded to earlier, will assist with both the identification of and improvement of areas of existing species-rich wildflower grassland under recent biodiversity net gain and offsetting planning policy changes. Such ecological surveys will help in the protection, enhancement, creation and mapping of these beneficial habitats to ensure that they thrive and grow. Equally, all new developments in the future will additionally have to evidence biodiversity net gain, which is a way of creating and improving natural habitats. Biodiversity net gain makes sure a new development has a measurably positive impact on biodiversity compared to what was there before development. This is now mandatory from February 24 and part of Gedling Borough Council's planning policy. The financial, legal, equalities and carbon reduction and environmental sustainability implications are all noted in the report. So in summing up, committee members are asked to note the policy and summary of actions and activities already undertaken by the Council to date. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I take questions, does anyone who was a councillor in 2021 know if people had a reply to the letters to the members of Parliament about insecticides?
I have copies of the letters, but I never saw the reply,
We don't know.
I'm afraid. So
Okay, thank you. So I've got questions from Councillor Ellis and Councillor Robinson-Payne.
Thank you, and I'm sure we very much welcome all the initiatives that you and your team are taking with regard to promoting bee-friendly policies. I am looking at item 1.4 in your report and the establishing of wildflower meadows on or underused parts of parks and public green spaces. Could I encourage the borough to consider working with Nottingham City, and in particular Nottingham City Homes, who own a number of small but significant green spaces, particularly in the gardens area. It's the way that the development was established. A great many sort of plots of grass which are not used particularly by local residents and might very productively be used for meadow and flower plots. Thank you.
Get it incorporated, yeah.
Thank you, Mel. And just to say again, just to echo what Councillor Ellis has said, it's really good to see what's actually happening to support pollinators in Gedling, and considering that some of this work come out of members bringing forward a motion, it just shows what we can achieve together. And actually, despite the financial constraints the council finds itself under due to the government cutbacks, I just wanted to understand a little bit better how the policy is making an impact in a positive way. Obviously, the things we can see, but for me, it would just be, how can we look at sort of the decline of bee and pollinating insect populations? How can we look at how that's changed, if at all, since the policy's enactment? And I just wanted to know if there is, I saw in I think it was one of the appendices, that there was a brief reference in the policy document about keeping up to date with scientific evidence on pollinator health. But I'd just like to know a bit more about how we're monitoring, measuring, and are we working with organisations like Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust and partners like that?
Wildlife Trust, and they do insect monitoring at Gedling Country Park. We've also had monitoring done at other sites as well, but I'll be honest, it's something we could improve on. One of the issues would always be we're controlling the land we own directly, but we can only influence on other land areas. So, the farmers are still spraying their fields with glyphosate and things like that. So the problem is with the insect population, it shares that habitat with both the farmers' fields and our own parks and open spaces. So whether it would ever be categorically good data that proved an increase in pollinator species, I'm not quite sure, but certainly within our own parks we can do, because we survey them on a regular basis, so we should be able to show that data moving into the future.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Just a little bit more of a parochial question, I suppose, just in relation to some issues that were raised with me recently in my own ward in Daybrook. The County Council contract holder for spraying of overgrowth at various locations in my ward recently. The council, I believe Gedling Borough Council has designated areas if there's the request from residents about not spraying certain parts or certain locations. But unfortunately, on an occasion, this was missed. I understand that the County Council, the contract holder for the spraying, didn't pick up on the fact that Gedling had designated certain areas for not to be sprayed. So I think the contractor did blame communication between the councils, but I just wanted to check that when contracts are signed for these types of works, are we making sure that enough information is being shared in terms of no spraying or designated zones, just so that I know efforts have been made to protect the work of the council that we've talked about, and so that residents also feel that they're sort of being listened to on the issue, because there was quite a bit of upset recently in some parts of the ward, which I think they contacted the council, but I just wanted to put that out there, that I think that communication is really important between the contract holders and the council.
So where we're at with that is, if I, as the environmental head of service, and one of my staff employ a contractor, we will ensure that they comply with our regulations, so no glyphosate, no pesticides. The issue with the county council contract is we don't control it. It is actually a county council contract. We can influence it, but they maintain all the verges and street trees within the borough. Gedling Borough Council does not maintain those. We maintain our parks and open spaces. They currently still do use glyphosate. They only use it once at the beginning of the year in spring, and then they pretty much don't come back again, though they will say they do a second application, and they do in select areas. So they are on hard paved areas. They don't spray it onto the grass verges, but on hard paved areas they are still using glyphosate, as far as I understand anyway. I can check that, and I can make a representation to them that they ought to stop using glyphosate, but we do need to be mindful of the fact that currently there aren't many other alternatives, and I guess out of that conversation people would need to be educated on expecting more weeds across the borough, because we wouldn't have the means to control them. That's something we need to be aware of. There are hot foam applications, there are flame applications, but obviously huge health and safety issues with those, and the problem with the foam applications is you need a truck, you need a generator, you need a tank, and then you've got large rubber hoses you've got to drag everywhere, and you've got to be linked to the truck all the time to spray the hot foam. So it's not very effective if you're going down long alleyways and things like that. Whereas the knapsack was always handier, because you just pump handle and then spray it as you walk down. So there are issues with that. I think industry will be working overnight on trying to resolve this problem at the moment, because whatever company comes up with that magic chemical is going to be very rich on the back of it, because at the moment the horticultural industry is struggling to find an alternative. There are tank mixers where you can put one chemical in with another, but what they'll often do at the moment is just take the greenery away. They still leave the roots in the ground, and then within about 4 weeks the greenery is growing back up again, if it's a perennial plant. It will get rid of the annual plants, but if it's a perennial, they come back up again. So there are issues around it, but I know that the industry is actively looking into it at the moment, and I can have that conversation with my county council representative as recommended that they perhaps consider non-use of glyphosate in future.
Okay, I'm conscious of the time, so I've got questions from Councillor Brown and Councillor Whiting.
Thank you. Going back to the wildflower meadows, is this something you would be discussing with parish councils? Because we would be extremely interested in doing this. And a few years ago, we were talking about doing wildflowers on roundabouts. For instance, Thackeray's was mentioned several times. Is that still in the mix? Thank you.
Just in terms of the roundabouts, once again, we don't control the roundabouts. Thackeray's is a historic annual bedding anomaly in that traditionally we always decorated that and put the bedding on it. So we now put perennials on it. And there's a display, I think, of yellow tulips on there at the moment, for instance. You've got to temper wildflower meadows with residents' perception of what's going on, because they can start to perceive that the council suddenly stopped maintaining everything and the grasses are just being left to grow, out of control, so to speak. But certainly, yes, I would love to get with the parishes. So any parishes that want to approach me in terms of introducing wildflower meadows in their areas, yeah, let's make it happen. I'd be fully on board with that.
Thanks, Chair. Collock Parish Council are doing a wildflower meadow in Collock at the minute, so I'm sure if any other parishes want to come and see what's been done. But just on the letter that was sent, was it 2021? Forgive me, I'm not aware who sent it, but if possible, perhaps we could encourage whoever sent it to write again, because 2021 we've probably had about 10 different environment ministers since then, but the issue hasn't gone away, and I think it's about time we had a, basic decency says that we should have had a response within the past 3 years. So perhaps, I don't know if that's Mel or the chair can ask whoever wrote those letters to write again, please.
We can certainly go back and ask the portfolio holder if they know. Okay, so if there's no more questions, then we're on to quiet fireworks.
Thank you, Chair. So quiet fireworks, this report is to update the committee on the progress of the quiet firework policy, seen in Appendix 1 on page 116 of your packs. The resulting delivery actions in relation to firework displays held on council-owned land. The report follows on a council motion on the 27th of January 21 regarding the adverse effects that loud noises from fireworks can have on the welfare of vulnerable people and animals. The council resolved to launch a public campaign to raise awareness of these impacts in the borough, to encourage advance advertising of planned firework events and promote alternative forms of activity, such as quiet fireworks or other light displays. It also resolved to look at how fireworks are used at council events with a view to move away from loud fireworks. Noise controls on firework displays policy was announced by Gedling Borough in January 21 and received positively by residents of the borough since its introduction. Local fireworks suppliers are being encouraged to stock quieter fireworks limited to the maximum noise level of 90 decibels for those sold to the public for private displays. To help minimise the disruption of fireworks on animal welfare and vulnerable people, also, low reduced noise fireworks are now commonly available on the UK domestic sales market, with Asda, Tesco, Morrison's, Aldi and others all stocking low noise varieties. In 2019, Sainsbury's took the decision to ban firework sales entirely. Most commercial display companies offer low reduced noise fireworks as a customisable option on professional displays. There's no significant price premium for reduced noise options. Low noise fireworks, i.e. those under 90 decibels, are not completely silent but are restricted to a comfortable prescribed level. All public displays on council-owned land are advertised in advance to actively promote public awareness about the impact of fireworks on vulnerable people and on animal welfare, to allow residents to take precautions for them. And the council will be actively promoting the RSPCA's public awareness campaign, #BangOutOfOrder, to help raise awareness of the impact of fireworks on animals, highlighting precautions that can be taken to mitigate risks at key times of the year, such as bonfire night, New Year, Chinese New Year and Diwali. A list of the known fireworks events held in the borough is attached to Appendix 2 on page 118 in your pack, and an example of a record of a decision to hold such an event is attached at Appendix 3 on page 119 of your packs. Your attention is drawn to the paragraph, point 5, the decision on the record, which asks for evidence before granting permission of compliance with this policy. The financial, legal, equalities and carbon reduction and environmental sustainability implications are all noted in this report. So in summing up, committee members are asked to note the policy and a summary of actions and activities already undertaken by the Council to date. Thank you.
Thank you. I suppose similarly to the last report, it would be helpful for this committee to know if any of those letters get a reply. And the other point I just had was that I didn't see the Carlton Town Football Club fireworks on the list.
It's an ever-changing scene. There are new ones coming on all the time. That's the, I think, Stand Hill Rec. That's where they hold. There's one now on Carlton Hill as well.
Carlton Town Football Club hold an annual fireworks on their ground. I think it's one of the biggest in the borough now.
Right, okay. That's another one to add.
Thank you. Councillor Whiting.
Just ever so quickly, Chair. Mel, do we talk to neighbouring local authorities about this? Because obviously a 90 decibel firework in Gedling Borough or 150 decibel that's just over the border is you know.
So Nottingham City, Rushcliffe and Broxtowe are all running similar policies, and I think Ashfield are as well now. So there are quite a few councils now starting to adopt this quieter firework policy.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you very much for your marathon report giving. It was, I mean, I learnt lots of things I didn't know, so thank you. So last but not least, we've got our Q3 risk scorecard to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tina Adams, the Head of Finance and ICT and Interim Section 151 Officer. I'm here today to present the Q3 risk scorecard and talk about risk management. So the current risk management strategy and framework was actually approved by Cabinet in October back in 2017. It is due for renewal in 2024, and a new risk management framework has actually been designed and has now been approved, and it's based on a much more detailed scorecard and based on a best practice model as defined by our internal auditors, BDO. So the current framework defines how risks are managed by the council and includes risk registers and a scorecard. Existing risks are identified in both operational and in corporate risk registers and are reviewed on a quarterly basis by senior management and on an ongoing basis by our internal auditors. Because of that, it means that some risks are set with initially quite a high risk score, with the expectation that as mitigation measures and actions are undertaken through the course of the year, the risks will reduce. However, not all risks will reduce. Some will inherently remain high or as red or amber just due to their nature. And I'm going to talk about one of those when we get onto the actual risks. So the corporate risk register and the risk scorecard has 13 risks on there. These have been reviewed and updated for Q3. I'll go through each one of them individually and give you the opportunity to ask questions on each one. So the first one is a failure to prevent budget overheating once it's been set. Now, this one is basically all about our current annual budget. It's basically about how well we are managing our budget and how well we're operating services and within our set budget envelope. So currently, the risk on this one is green. It's B2, so it's low likelihood, minor impact. It has increased slightly from Q2 when it was green B1. And that's because at Q3 budget monitoring that was presented to Council on the 31st of January, it showed some significant overspends in some areas, particularly around environmental services. However, underspends in other areas and additional investment income from our treasury management activities was able to offset those overspends. So we are forecasting an overall balanced budget for 23-24. That's why it's still green. The outturn, so year end, is currently being worked through, so I can't give you an indication of that year end position yet because I don't have one. Hopefully in the next few weeks I will, but we're hoping to report the outturn at Cabinet in May. So some of our planned works in the year are around some zero-based budgeting, particularly around those service areas where we always seem to overspend, so in environmental services. And I'm going to talk to you about something that Mel just spoke about, to put it in context when we're talking about kind of like spraying and not using chemicals. So, for example, budgets were set and are based on incremental budgeting, so known changes year on year. So when we make changes to the way we deliver services, so prime example with what Mel just said, was not spraying weeds at Gedling Country Park, particularly around the half-paved areas, where that perhaps used to take 5-10 minutes to actually go and pull all those weeds up, probably takes 2-3 hours. Budgets aren't aligned to that at the moment, so we need to do some zero-based budgeting in those areas to actually bring the activity, the performance in line with the budgets. So we're planning to do some of that in the new year. It's quite a chunky piece of work, so we will pick some of those areas that are overspending to start to have a look at those. So has anybody got any questions on that one? No? Okay. So move on to number 2 then. So failure to maintain financial integrity. So basically this one is not just about our current year's budget, it's about our 5-year medium-term budget and our ability to maintain operations and service delivery over the next 5 years whilst remaining above our minimum general fund balances. So basically about having a 5-year balanced budget. So currently, the risk is red. It's E4, very high likelihood and major impact. It has stayed the same. It hasn't increased or decreased. So the 24, and the reason it's red, it's one of these ones that inherently always going to be red and always going to be high risk. And the reasons for this is basically because of the budget and the interdependence on a significant number of efficiencies to maintain a balanced budget, and also the level of government funding that we've seen over a number of years and the reductions in that government funding. So the 24-25 budget was approved by full council on the 6th of March. It is a balanced budget over the 5 years, but as I said, it does rely on some significant efficiencies that will need to be delivered over the next 5 years. So we're looking at £3.5 million worth of efficiencies which need to be delivered by 28-29 to maintain that balanced budget position. Out of that, 1.3 million have already been identified and are included in the medium-term plan for delivery. 460,000 of those are in 24-25 and another 500,000 which we expect to be delivered through the digital data and technology strategy. So the remainder of those efficiencies, whilst some have been identified but not fully developed, over the next few years they will develop into more firm efficiency proposals which will be proposed and approved by council in future years. So it is by its nature going to remain a red risk, and it's very unlikely to drop below red over the term of the 5-year plan. So some items still to deliver as part of this. We've got our procurement and contract strategy that we're currently working up. We're waiting for details of the new Procurement Act, which are expected out towards September and October. Implementation of a charging strategy, so looking at the way that we charge for our fees and our services and fees and charges. We do currently have a strategy. It's in draft format. It has been audited quite recently by our internal audit, so we're currently in the process of looking at those recommendations and putting those forward. So has anybody got any questions about that risk? No, doing well here. So 3, failure to protect staff, including health and safety issues. This is an amber issue, C3, significant likelihood and serious impact. It hasn't moved from quarter 3, it's stayed the same. I think when Mike was here last time, he spoke about how health and safety are continuing with their programmes of inspections and risk assessments. That's still the case. There is some actions that have not yet been delivered, and some staff shortages in some of the service area means that actions are not yet yet completed. The rollout of the emergency evacuation revised scheme was implemented, and the health and safety audit was completed with an overall moderate assurance. Any questions? So 4, failure to recruit, retrain staff and maintain internal capacity. This is amber, C3. Again, it has stayed the same as it was in Q2. I think Mike went through last time a whole series of things that we were doing to try and retain and attract staff into the authority. So I won't go through those again. What I will say, though, is that there's still a national shortage of skilled staff and general difficulty in recruiting. However, although the labour market has remained tight by historical standards, in October 23 there was a sharp fall in actual wage growth, which will reinforce the belief that the markets should return to something that we would have expected previously. And I think looking at some of our recent campaigns, recruitment campaigns, we've had a much higher level of people applying for jobs, which is good news. So let's hope that that continues. Things to still to do around this is the review of the agile working, which is currently underway, and we are undertaking some investment in digital upskilling as part of our digital data and technology strategy that was approved as part of the budget process. Has anybody got any questions on that one?
Councillor Ellis.
Yes, thank you. I always approve of grow your own strategies, and I notice this is in this particular report. Could you just expand a little bit on what teams are growing their own and how they're going about it?
So legal services, they have actually got a couple of trainees in there now, so they're looking to train their solicitors up because there has been a significant shortage in the market. And I think you tend to see it across all of those kind of like professional sectors. Again, in finance, we are looking at a restructure in finance, and what we're looking to do is start to grow our own accountants. So we'll be introducing some trainee accountancy schemes in there as well as part of that.
Councillor Whiting.
Do we have any data or insights into whether we get more applicants for roles that are hybrid-based or remote-based rather than those that need to be in the office full-time? And is that something that's being considered moving forward?
So it's something that we can ask our HR colleagues. They may have some data around that. Obviously, most office-based positions are actually hybrid and agile now. If people want to work in that way, obviously, if somebody wants to come into the office 5 days a week, then they can actually do that. What we have seen, though, is if you look at other authorities, there is that definite general move towards the agile approach, ours is actually, I think it's 60-40, so 40% of time in the office, so 2 days out of 5. Ours is actually quite high compared to a lot of other local authorities. So what we don't know is actually if that is a driver, if people want to apply for jobs where they can work agile more. But it's something we can ask our HR colleagues, and I'll do that and hopefully bring that back.
We have got a report on that coming to one of the upcoming committee meetings.
Okay. So risk number 5 is failure to properly utilise ICT and reacting to technology changes and preventing data loss. Again, it's currently red, D3, which is high likelihood significant risk. This has increased from Q2. Again, this is one of those risks that is inherently red and high risk just because of its nature. So I think what the reason this has increased is that I spoke about the digital data and technology strategy that we've actually implemented or starting to implement. That has actually identified some risks around ICT. So as part of the roadmap, so planned for delivery over the next 12 months, we're going to be looking at those. And it's basically, budget shortages over the years have resulted in a lack of investment in technology, in staff, and obviously in training. And really, we've acknowledged that ICT is the backbone of an organisation. You can't move your arms and your legs without your backbone, and that's the same for ICT. So we do need to invest in that digital strategy and that digital technology over the next few years. And it's all about improving that customer experience and creating efficiencies. The budget that was approved in March by full council did include some significant investment in digital transformation as part of that digital data and technology strategy. Okay. Risk 6, failure to protect and utilise physical assets. Again, this is red at C4 with significant likelihood. This has stayed the same. It hasn't moved since Q2. The risk did increase in Q1, but it does remain amber. I mean, it's mainly due to some drainage issues we have at one of our leisure centres, which we don't actually own. So discussions with the county are being held about how to deal with those. Also, some surveys on some of our properties are being hindered by the lack of an asset management system. We have numerous spreadsheets that we're using for kind of like asset management. It might seem simple to just say, go and buy an asset management system, but actually the digital data and technology strategy has identified that we have far too many systems, ad hoc systems that don't actually talk to each other and communicate with each other. So whilst we will be looking at an asset management system, we have to do it in the overall context of that digital and data technology strategy to make sure that any system that we do procure and use can work in the way that we need it to work and works in harmony with our digital strategy. No? Shall we move on? Okay, so risk 7 is failure to react to legislation. This is a red risk at D3 with significant likelihood and serious impact. It has stayed the same. It hasn't moved since Q2. It remains high as there's significant changes in legislation that are coming into force, which we don't have full details of yet. So we will need to be able to plan for these changes. So, for example, we all know about the new waste reforms around food waste and weekly collections. We now know that food waste may affect trade waste collections, which is a paid-for discretionary service. So we need to understand the costs associated with that and if the increases in fees and charges can actually cover that. We've got a new procurement tax coming into force in October 24. So we need a new procurement strategy that kind of like reflects all the changes in that new legislation. And then also there's been new requirements for a qualification that needs to be undertaken for our building control officers. So they're all the reasons why that risk is remaining quite high as a red risk. So risk number 8, failure of contractors or partnership arrangements and contractual breaches. This risk is actually amber at C3. It stayed the same. It hasn't moved since Q2. In Q3, we had a survey on procurement arrangements from members of staff to inform future provision and implementation of some of the internal audit recommendations on contract management. We will continue to work on our internal audit recommendations around contract management. Still to do is to utilise the intent system that we purchased for contract register and management. And we need to review some indemnity insurances in the terms and conditions of contracts just to make sure that they do reflect the council's risk appetite and align with the work around the procurement strategy and the new act that I've just spoken about. So moving on to risk 9, the inability to defend one-off challenges to a council decision or compensation trend emerges. So this is green. It's a green risk. It's quite low, A3, so low likelihood. It stayed the same as it was at Q2. So as reported previously to the Environmental and Licensing Committee in January 23, there was some issues around taxi licence fees which were overcharged. A process of refunds has been in place for quite a while now. We do have a new methodology for calculating fees over a 3-year period to show that we don't make a surplus. This has been development so that there's no reoccurrence of this going forward. The new fees for the new financial year are actually going to be presented at the Environmental and Licensing Committee tomorrow. There's been no change in risk or no specific threats identified, and there is adequate resource in legal services to support any potential challenges. Okay, so risk 10, failure to maintain service standards, customer satisfaction and or meet customer expectations. Again, this is a green risk, so it's very low, B1, low likelihood, negligible impact. Again, it stayed the same as it was at Q2. So we continue to monitor complaints. The new digital data and technology strategy is all about focusing on that customer journey, improving that customer experience. This will bring a host of improvements to systems and processes. We've been talking about that quite a lot. We're expecting quite a lot from that strategy going forward. And of course, we will obviously need to keep our eyes on staffing levels in customer services to make sure that we can implement that strategy and implement those changes. Okay. Risk 11, failure to prevent damage to the council's reputation. Again, this is a low risk. It's green, it's B2 with low likelihood and minor impact. It stayed the same as at Q2. The one on here, which Mel has spoken a lot about today, is carbon. It's big on the agenda for reputation. So the Carbon Management Action Plan continues to be implemented, as you've heard today, with the Carbon Environmental Group meeting regularly to monitor actions and update Cabinet on those actions. Still to do, and the senior management staff restructure is currently underway. Consultation period has recently ended, so this is progressing quite quickly now. So, any questions? Nope. So, risk number 12, the failure to react to an environmental incident or malicious act. This is an amber risk, C3, significant likelihood, serious impact. It has stayed the same, it hasn't moved, but again, it's one of those inherent risks that will usually stay quite high. Climate change continues to be a challenge for us, with more flooding in the borough. Grants have been awarded for Storm Babette and Hank. And we have business continuity plans which are largely completed, and I believe that Rebecca came to speak to you about this at a previous meeting, and so they will be continuing. And last but not least, risk number 13, failure to react to socio-economic trends. Again, this is a very low risk, it's green, it's B2. Low likelihood, but would have a minor impact. Again, it stayed the same as it was at Q2. And this is all about looking forward to the next 20 or 30 years. So, you know, we have the Gedling plan in place. We've completed service planning for 24-25, and service priorities have been identified and will be reportable over the next 12 months. And of course, we have the mayoral elections for the combined authority, which will take place in just under 2 weeks now. So that's all the risks. So the only other thing that I just want to update you on is any other high-risk audit recommendations. So during Q3, the internal audit on the main financial systems was undertaken, and that highlighted some high-risk recommendations due to the recent fraud that we've had at the council. And that they came out of this audit. So the findings of the audit and a discussion of remedial actions taken so far were actually discussed at the last audit committee as an exempt part of that audit meeting that was held in March. So the committee is just asked to note the progress on the actions and the risks.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the review of the risk management strategy and framework. So I just wanted to check because we're lucky enough to have the chair of the audit committee here. Is that something that committee was involved in looking at, or? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, it was actually presented at the last audit committee meeting.
Thank you. Just wanted to check there was member involvement. That was all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? No? Well, thank you for staying, and thank you for a very comprehensive report. Okay, so the only other item on the agenda is the our plan. Sorry, I've got no pages open and I can't remember the proper term. There we are. Our work programme. There we go. A few items have just got moved around just in terms of Emma being on leave today and the availability of some people to come and give their reports. Is there anything anybody wants to ask to go on in light of today's meeting or anything else? Yeah, Councillor Robinson-Payne.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to raise the fact that as a member, you know, dealing with casework on a day-to-day basis, I have actually received an alarming amount of issues in dealing with Section 21 notices that are being issued in my ward, and I think in other parts of the borough from what I've heard from some members. And it just feels that at the moment that these no-fault evictions are rising, and obviously with a housing crisis already affecting local communities, I'd just like to ask whether the committee would consider some scrutiny work to look at this problem in Gedling, and perhaps even ask our housing team or even the housing team manager here at Gedling Borough Council to come to this committee and give us a view about the situation, and perhaps allow us some opportunity to ask questions about how the system is currently coping with this rise in evictions.
So would you be happy with that as the first course of action, to ask someone to come and give us a report and then see if there's any further scrutiny that arises out of that? Can we put that down? Thank you, Ben. Okay, anybody else? No, then thank you all very much for attending, and you may now go home. Thank you.